clear and we'll start over. It's James Murray with Net News Ledger. We're in the NAN offices with NAN Grand Chief Harvey Yesno. And we're going to be talking a bit about what's going on in the northern areas. Grand Chief, the Ring of Fire is a concern for First Nations groups. What do our readers need to know about the Ring of Fire and Nishnawbe-Aski Nation?
Obviously, the first thing is the communities closest to the Ring of Fire are the ones probably most directly involved, like the Matawa First Nations, and there's 5 communities that are in remote location there, and then there's 4 road access communities. That's the Matawa First Nation group, and so up to this point in time, they're taking the lead on the huge potential that's been in the news for I guess almost 8 years now. And right now they're in the midst of hammering out a framework agreement with the province to probably set the stage for a number of sub-agreements, on infrastructure, not only community and regional infrastructure, business opportunities, economic training and placement, all of those things that have been identified by the community. So that's the process that's in. On the bigger picture, the communities, not necessarily close to the community. There's other communities that are close, like Casablanca on the northwest side of Webique. And then there's other communities that are affected by watershed, particularly Oppportunity First Nation that's directly downriver from the communities of Casaccio and then Fort Albany are also concerned once the north-south corridor is developed. The other thing is that as the Ring of Fire does get developed, right now the 2 sites that are looked at is part of the Oppportunity watershed, but if there's development, say north of there, say north of Webique, now you're getting into the Winisk and Fort Severn watershed. So now you're involving many more First Nations concerns around the environment, particularly the water and that. So our position overall is not necessarily to take a look at the Ring of Fire per se, because I believe the leadership there within Matawas is doing that in representing their First Nations, and that I think where Nishnawbe-Aski Nation would come in on as far as looking at the whole region from a treaty perspective, Treaty Number 9 perspective, is we have resolutions that directs Nishnawbe-Aski Nation and the executive to look at things like resource revenue sharing, and we have a resolution to look at a new relationship with Canada and Ontario. And so when you start talking about that, it's not just about the Ring of Fire. We're talking about all of the north. 32 communities are fly-in only, and so we have to deal with those on a global basis on behalf of particularly the remote communities, because the road access communities have a different challenge. One is that they've had development that has happened in forestry or mining for decades, and that's another issue that we have to deal with, and there's resolutions on that has to be addressed at some point in time. But as far as going forward, Ring of Fire is just one piece in the whole picture. There's other economic interests in the Northwest and other communities. So our role is going to be to ensure that the senior levels of government do follow the duty to consult and accommodate. I think there's other areas that they need to get involved in terms of fostering, foreign investment. That kind of that needs to happen, because let's face it, you need billions of dollars to build the infrastructure and even to begin to open and operate these mines and or other interests, other economic interests. So that's the role of the senior levels of government, and and there's going to be a lot of revenue derived. And basically, if I say so, to be more very specific, I mean, there's been a lot of reports that have been done about the Ring of Fire and commentary from different organizations and so on. In Northern Ontario, we have a provincial legislation that's been received royal assent already, and that's called the Far North Act. And our chiefs have already passed several resolutions. Several resolutions. In fact, 9 resolutions opposing the Far North Act, so I think what we're concerned about, and the chiefs have said this, the Far North Act is about protection of the North, the lands and waters and so on, and yet First Nations are very interested particularly in the mineral sector, in their territories and that, and we know that the minister can provide exemptions on development, whether it's roads or transmission lines and mining and so on. But I think this is where the concern lies with First Nations, that there may not be an significant economic deposit found in some of these areas. They could conceivably be in a protected zone, which could complicate things in the future for possible development, say possible another Ring of Fire in another region. So that's a very good, big concern. The province has not changed its course. The Mining Act amendments too, I think our First Nations were loud and clear that there has to be engagement at the earliest possible time, including concerns about free access. That never happened. There was some tweaking of the Mining Act, but really, it's business as usual, and so there's a lot of concerns there. The environmental assessment certainly is a big concern with First Nations, because what is going to happen is, with the changes in federal legislation, really that's clearly seen as accelerating the development of specific time frames where decisions need to be made, and that's a big concern, and that's why First Nations are asking for a higher threshold in an environmental assessment, specifically because of that, and we've seen already a couple developments in remote locations when it was announced, and 30 days later approval is given, and basically 200 permits are issued to the company to start developing. So those are very serious concerns, and I think it's evolving and so on. And I think I just mentioned watersheds here because that's what I'm hearing, and there's things going on with Matawa specifically on the framework agreement, but you can't lose sight of the other First Nations that are going to be impacted, and so that has to be looked at in order to address all the different issues that are in place, and we're not just a stakeholder. We've got a treaty, and our partners are Ontario and Canada, and we need to address that new relationship in developing the North, remote North particularly.
Okay, thank you. And Kirsten, if you can go clear, and we'll start.